No one at Stone Valley Sanctuary ever imagined seeing a scene like this, a simple golden retriever with brown eyes and a serene gaze, lying next to 3 newborn lion cubs. It was a miracle of nature before human eyes. But what began as an act of compassion and survival would, years later, become one of the most moving and dangerous reunions ever witnessed there. Because, when those cubs grew up, something utterly unthinkable happened. The sun rose slowly over the vast golden field of Stone Valley Sanctuary, when Maya, a golden retriever with a shiny coat and a sweet temperament, walked between the fences beside her trainer, Dra. Emily Carson. Maya had just lost her own puppies during childbirth. Since then, she spent her days quietly, staring into space, as if searching for something to make her feel alive again. Emily knew that look, the emptiness of a childless mother. That same morning, an urgent call broke the silence of the sanctuary. A young lioness had died giving birth to 3 puppies. The cubs, still blind and fragile, shivered from the cold. The vet warned, without a mother, they wouldn't survive more than a few hours. Emily felt a tightness in her chest. Caring for lion cubs was a delicate task, and even with all the human staff, none of them could replace the warmth and maternal instinct those cubs needed. It was then that she looked at Maya. The golden retriever lay motionless near the courtyard gate, as if waiting for a new purpose. Emily hesitated, but something inside her told her she had to try. If anyone can save these lives, it's her, she thought. She grabbed a blanket, wrapped the 3 puppies in it, and walked to Maya's kennel. When she set the little ones down, silence fell. Maya approached slowly. Her wet nose touched the spotted fur of one of the puppies. Then, an unexpected gesture, she began licking the little one, then another, and another. The team watched in utter amazement. Maya lay down and pulled the puppies' noses to her belly. They snuggled together, seeking warmth. Emily brought her hands to her mouth, overcome with emotion. The impossible was happening before her eyes. For the next few hours, Maya didn't leave their side. Her instincts had reawakened. The sanctuary was witnessing the rebirth of a mother, and the beginning of a bond that would challenge everything scientifically known about animal behavior. Lucy woke each morning at the slightest noise coming from the corner of the barn. The lion cubs, Leo, Nala, and Zuri, no longer fit in the small wooden box where they'd slept for the first few weeks. Now, they rolled around on the hay floor, vying for space and attention. Lucy, even exhausted, watched their every move with the watchful eye of a true mother. When one of them strayed too far, she would get up, gently grab it by the scruff of the neck, and bring it back. It was pure instinct, but also unconditional love. The days passed, and the entire farm talked about the unlikely bond. Jack, the farm's caretaker, a 45-year-old man with short brown hair and a thin beard, said he'd never seen anything like it. He watched Lucy care for the puppies with infinite patience, licking their foreheads and even allowing them to nurse alongside her, even though she didn't have enough milk. It was as if she knew they needed something more than food, they needed affection. As the sun set behind the hills, Lucy would lead them beneath the tallest tree in the field, where the gentle wind lulled the end of the day. There, she would lie down and let the 3 of them cuddle against her golden body. The contrast between her golden coat and the yellowish fur of the cubs created an almost magical image. Jack, watching from afar, would often say in a low voice, "She doesn't see differences, she only sees hearts." But as the days turned into months, something began to change. The puppies were growing, and fast. Their teeth, once small and harmless, were now sharp. Their play was becoming more intense, and Lucy was beginning to feel the weight of these changes. Still, she didn't pull away. When one of them bit too hard, she only growled softly, as if to say, "I'm still your mother." Jack, noticing their rapid growth, began to worry. He knew that soon, the young lion's wild instincts might awaken. Still, he hesitated to separate them. There was something about their bond that defied logic, something that showed that love truly could transcend species boundaries. And one cold, windy morning, something unexpected happened. Leo, the largest of the cubs, let out a roar loud enough to echo throughout the farm. Lucy was startled, took a step back, but then approached and nuzzled him tenderly. It was Leo's first roar, and also the first sign that puppyhood was coming to an end. The sound of Leo's roar marked the beginning of a new phase. From that day on, the three cubs' behavior began to change subtly but noticeably. Leo, now almost Lucy's size, began exploring every corner of the farm with wild curiosity. Nala and Zuri followed closely behind, observing everything with shining eyes. Lucy followed silently, like a golden shadow, ever attentive to every step, always ready to intervene if something got out of hand. Jack watched from the wooden porch, his expression a mixture of admiration and apprehension. He knew their bond was numbered. The lion's natural instincts would soon take over. But every time he considered separating them, he saw Lucy lying between the three of them, licking their ears and letting them sleep against her chest. It was impossible not to be moved by the sight. One afternoon, as the sky turned orange, Leo tried hunting for the first time. He spotted a small hare among the crops and instinctively charged. Lucy ran after it, barking loudly, not out of fear, but trying to call it back. When she grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and made it lie down, Jack realized something startling. Lucy wasn't just caring, she was teaching limits even without understanding the wild world. She guided him to the balance between strength and control. As the weeks passed, the bond seemed stronger, but also more delicate. At night, the roars began to echo deeper. The lions' bodies were now muscular, their heavy paws leaving deep impressions in the barn floor. Lucy stood firm, a symbol of courage and loyalty that knew no fear. Even when the young lions tested her strength, she remained calm, commanding respect with a simple look. Jack began recording everything in notes and recordings. He believed those scenes could change the way people viewed animals. It was as if Lucy had been born for that moment, not by fate, but by being in the right place at the right time, proving that pure love knows no boundaries. But then, one night, the silence of the farm was shattered by a roar louder than all the others. Jack ran to the barn. What he saw made his heart freeze. The three lions were surrounding something, and Lucy, standing in the center, stared at them without flinching. The wild instinct had finally awakened. The air that night seemed heavier. The moon illuminated the barn with a pale light, revealing the lions' already imposing bodies, poised at attention. Lucy stood motionless, ears pricked, her chest rising and falling slowly, as if trying to control her breathing. Jack watched from the entrance, not daring to approach. He knew that a single false move could turn this moment into tragedy. Leo roared again, a sound that vibrated the walls. Nala and Zuri echoed him, as if responding to an inner call, something that had never manifested so strongly before. Lucy stepped forward, raising her muzzle and letting out a firm, authoritative bark. It was as if she were silently saying, "I am your mother. You know that." The three lions hesitated. For a moment, their wild eyes seemed confused, a mix between the instinct to hunt and the memory of the affection that had kept them alive. Lucy slowly approached Leo, the largest of the three. He touched his muzzle to hers and let out a small whimper, a sound he had used countless times when they were cubs. Leo took a step back. The roaring stopped. Jack breathed a sigh of relief, but he knew that peace was fragile. The next morning, he decided to seek help. He contacted wildlife experts, explaining what was happening. The response was unanimous: separation was inevitable. The lions needed to be transferred to a conservation center before their instincts took over. When Jack announced his decision, Lucy seemed to understand. That night, she lay next to the three of them, watching them sleep side by side for the last time. She didn't cry, but her eyes held the quiet sadness of a mother who knew time had run its course. Days later, trucks arrived to transport the lions. Leo, Nala, and Zuri were placed in large transport crates. Lucy tried to follow them, crying and scratching at the ground. Jack held her, trying to comfort her. The scene broke the hearts of all who witnessed it. The roars of the young lions echoed until they faded into the distance. Lucy stood still, staring at the empty road, the wind gently ruffling her golden fur. At that moment, something shifted inside her. The silence of the farm had never felt so profound. And though the barn still bore the scent and markings of her cubs, the space now felt too empty. Lucy had accomplished her mission, but a part of her remained out there, somewhere, with the 3 lions she called her children. Months had passed since the lions' departure. The farm seemed to have lost its soul. Lucy wandered the silent fields, always stopping at the gate where she had last seen the trucks depart. Jack tried to distract her with walks and games, but she seemed stuck in the past, as if expecting to hear, at any moment, the familiar roar echoing from her memory. The nights grew long. Jack would often find her lying in the barn, next to the small marks on the boards where the puppies used to scratch when they played. He realized that Lucy hadn't just raised them, she had become part of them, and they part of her. The bond hadn't disappeared, it had simply been torn from their presence. Meanwhile, life at the conservation center moved at a different pace. Leo grew quickly and became the natural leader of the small pride. Strong, imposing, and fearless, he no longer resembled the fragile cub who sought the warmth of the golden dog. But the caretakers noticed something peculiar, none of the flames of aggression flared when the sound of a bark echoed in the distance. The lions would stop, attentive, and fall silent, as if the sound transported them back to a time when they were just helpless babies. Jack, when visiting the center, noticed this too. As he approached the enclosure, Leo watched him but showed no hostility. On impulse, Jack called Leo's name aloud, and for a brief moment, Leo inclined his head, his gaze softening. Jack smiled. This proved what he'd already suspected, something inside those lions still recognized the bond with Lucy. Back at the farm, Lucy was growing older. Her fur was beginning to show gray, and her walks were becoming slower. Yet her eyes retained the same sparkle, a mixture of sweetness and courage. Jack felt time was running out, but he also believed, deep down, that this story wasn't over yet. One afternoon, a storm brewed in the distance. The sky darkened, the wind gusted, and lightning began to strike the nearby hills. Jack rushed to close the barns and protect the animals, but something made him uneasy. The conservation center's old electrical system was in the same area of the hills. And he knew that if something failed there, the cage gates could be compromised. The storm continued to grow, and Jack's instincts told him that something was about to happen, something that would change everything he and Lucy had experienced so far. The storm that night was the most violent Stone Valley had ever experienced. Lightning streaked across the sky, and the sound of thunder shook the farm ground. Jack was trying to reinforce the barn doors when the phone rang. On the other end, a frantic voice, it was the conservation center manager. Lightning had struck the main fence. The enclosure gates had been broken. 3 lions were loose. Jack's blood ran cold. He didn't need to ask which lions they were. He grabbed his flashlight and ran to the truck, and before he could say a word, Lucy jumped into the back. It was as if she already knew. The maternal instinct that had once guided her was reawakening, strong, unshakable, uncontrollable. The road to the center was nearly impassable. The rain fell like a thick curtain, and the wind pushed the vehicle from side to side. When he finally arrived, the scene resembled a battlefield, fallen fences, uprooted trees, and an eerie silence amidst the sounds of the storm. Jack shouted for the guards, but no one answered. Then he heard it, the roar. Loud. Close. Lucy leaped from the dumpster before Jack could grab her. She ran toward the sound, her fur soaked from the rain, but her gaze fixed, determined. Jack followed her, slipping through the mud, calling her name. When he reached the old feeding yard, he saw it, 3 immense shadows moving in the lightning. Leo, Nala, and Zuri. Grown, powerful, wild. Their muscular bodies glistened in the rain. They were free, and Lucy stood before them, unafraid, only with a pounding heart. Jack screamed, but the sound of the storm drowned out his voice. The world seemed to freeze for a moment. The lions began to approach, slowly. Instinct told her this could be the end. Lucy didn't move. She just looked at them, the same tender look she'd used when she'd fed them, when she'd made them sleep against her warm body. And then something impossible happened. Leo stopped a few feet away. He lowered his head. The roaring stopped. Lucy took a small step forward and nuzzled his chest. Nala and Zuri approached, forming a circle around her. No sound of aggression, no sign of threat. Just the sound of rain and a silence that seemed to hold the weight of all the years they had been apart. Jack watched from afar with tears in his eyes. He knew he was witnessing something science might never explain, a bond that had survived time, instinct, and nature itself. For a few seconds, no one moved. The storm raged around them, but the moment seemed suspended in time. Lucy stood still, her gaze fixed on Leo's golden eyes, which were now watching her with an expression impossible to decipher. He sniffed her slowly, recognizing the scent that, even after years, was still etched in his memory. A soft sound escaped his throat, not a roar, but a low sound, almost like a puppy's whimper. Nala was the next to approach. She nuzzled Lucy's shoulder and, almost incredulously, lay down beside her, pressing her heavy body against the golden retriever's wet fur. Zuri, always the most impulsive, circled the group before lying down as well, lowering her head onto her paws and releasing a soft, throaty purr, typical of lions when relaxed. Jack watched from behind a fallen tree, his breath shaky. He knew that if he tried to intervene, he might upset the delicate balance of their reunion. Lucy was in the middle of three wild predators, animals that, in any other context, could tear her apart in seconds. But here, in that moment, there was no threat, only recognition. The rain began to ease, and the lightning grew more distant. Lucy licked each of their snouts, as if cleaning them again, the way she had when they were little. The lions, now lying around her, closed their eyes. It was as if they were returning to the past, to those days when they snuggled under her warm body, when their wild instincts still slumbered. Jack felt his legs weaken. He knew he was witnessing something beyond rational explanation, living proof that love, when genuine, leaves marks that neither time nor savagery can erase. Yet the danger was still there, silent, waiting for any wrong signal. One sudden movement, one sudden sound, and everything could change in seconds. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, softly calling Lucy's name. The golden retriever looked up, ears perked, but didn't move. The lions merely raised their heads, watching the man. For a moment, Jack felt his heart stop. Leo's eyes were fixed on him intensely, not threatening, but curious. And then, something unexpected, Leo stepped forward, nudged Lucy with his muzzle, and roared. But the roar, rather than an attack, sounded like a call, a warning to the other two, who immediately backed away and formed a semicircle around her. Jack understood, Leo was protecting Lucy. The wind died down, the rain stopped completely. Amidst the silence, the man observed this unbelievable scene, a domestic dog, surrounded by three adult lions, being treated as part of the pride. And for the first time, he realized that what Lucy had done years ago hadn't just saved three cubs, it had changed the course of their lives forever. Dawn began to break slowly over Stone Valley. The rain had stopped completely, and a light mist covered the sodden fields. Jack stood motionless, watching from afar as Lucy, now surrounded by the three adult lions, seemed to rest among them as if no time had passed. The soft dawn light highlighted the contrast, the gold of Lucy's fur against the deep golden brown of the lions. It was a living painting of something that defied all logic in nature. The center's staff began arriving, alarmed by the news of the storm and the escape. When they saw the scene, no one could believe it. Several stopped, mouths open, not daring to approach. One of the guards raised his tranquilizer, but Jack immediately stopped him. "Don't shoot," he said firmly. "They're not attacking. They remember her." Suddenly, Leo lifted his head and looked directly at the group of humans. His golden eyes sparkled in the light of the rising sun. Jack felt his heart race. The lion let out a short but powerful roar, the kind of sound that vibrates the air. The guard instinctively backed away. Lucy stood and walked over to Leo, touching his muzzle as if to calm him. The lion relaxed, lowering his head again. The strength of the connection between them was so evident that no one dared interrupt. With calm, slow movements, Jack began to approach. He knew he had to act, but also that any mistake could be fatal. He spoke softly, trying to keep his tone as calm as possible. Lucy looked at him, wagging her tail, and then turned back to the lions, as if to assure her that everything was okay. Leo moved first, making room for her to pass. Nala and Zuri followed her with their eyes, without a single aggressive gesture. Lucy walked over to Jack, stopping right in front of him. He knelt in the mud and hugged her tightly. The Golden's body still trembled with exhaustion, but her gaze was calm, almost serene. For a brief moment, Jack was certain she understood her mission was accomplished. Behind them, the three lions watched, still, attentive, almost reverent. The guards, now ready to act, began to surround the animals and herd them back into the enclosure. But something surprising happened. Leo roared loudly once more, not in threat, but as a call. The other two responded with deep rumbles, almost as if they were saying goodbye. Lucy turned her head and looked at them. That look said it all. In that moment, everyone realized, this wasn't the end of a story, but the closing of a cycle. Lucy had given them more than care, she had given them identity, memories, and love. Even as accomplished hunters, the three still remembered the dog who taught them what it meant to belong to a family. Jack wept silently. He knew he would never see anything like it again in his life. And within him, a certainty grew: nothing, not even the wildest instinct, can erase true love when it is born pure. The sun now shone over the valley, illuminating the pools of water that reflected the first golden hues of morning. Lucy walked beside Jack, covered in mud, tired, but with the calm look of someone who had accomplished something greater than herself. Behind her, the three lions were already being led back to their enclosure. Even from a distance, Leo paused one last time, turning his face toward the dog. Their eyes met. There was no sound, only the heavy silence of a farewell that said everything without words. Jack knelt and stroked Lucy's head. "You did the impossible," he whispered. The golden retriever simply wagged her tail, gazing at the horizon. The wind blew lightly, carrying the scent of wet earth and, with it, a sense of peace. This story wasn't about taming the wild, but about understanding that love, when true, has the power to transform even that which was born untamable. In the days that followed, Lucy returned to her routine on the farm, but something about her had changed. Every now and then, at dusk, Jack would see her sitting in front of the field, her gaze distant, fixed on the hills where the conservation center stood. It was as if she expected, at any moment, to hear the distant echo of a familiar roar. And perhaps, deep down, I did hear it, not with my ears, but with my heart. The three lions, in turn, displayed unexpected behavior after their reunion. They became calmer, less aggressive, and on certain mornings, the keepers swore they heard them emit a soft, low moaning sound as the sun rose. It was as if they were calling for the mother who had once taken them in, defying logic and nature. The bond between Lucy and those three giants of the savannah has become a symbol among the sanctuary's caretakers, a living reminder that sometimes what changes a being's destiny is not blood, nor strength, but compassion born at the right time, in the right place. And for Lucy, once heartbroken by loss, that unlikely love was the gift life returned in the form of eternity. In that unlikely reunion, the world witnessed something few would believe, that even the wildest heart can forever hold the echo of the purest love. And that when two worlds meet through the instinct of kindness, time may pass, nature may change, but the memory of true love never fades. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel to help me bring you more stories, and activate the bell. Share your thoughts and share your tips and suggestions in the comments. Keep watching for more stories like this. Each one holds a lesson in love, courage, and connection that you'll never forget.